Hey guys, what's going on? GorbZ back here with another Falcon BMS tutorial. I got a lot of love for the beginner's guide and the tools that I use, so I thought, hey, it wouldn't hurt if I just throw a couple more out there to get some basic users in. With 4.38, we've seen an influx of users, I feel, and just a growth in the community in general, especially coming from other flight simulators. So I thought this would be a good idea to introduce people and get them comfortable with starting missions and starting campaigns and other things of that nature. And if I can help people stick around a little bit longer and make it easier for them, then I'm going to do that in the name of the community. So, when you first launch up Falcon BMS with the Korea Theater specifically, and pretty much every campaign looks exactly the same, at least on this screen, what you'll want to do to start a campaign is you'll want to come over here to the Fly Now tab and click Campaign. And here you have 4 different campaigns. You have Tiger Spirit, Rolling Fire, Iron Fortress, and Bear Trap. Each of these are different difficulties, and as you go down the list, you'll see an increase in difficulty. So Tiger Spirit starts with the easiest, and Bear Trap ends with the hardest. Rolling Fire is about a medium to beginner's level campaign with a little bit more action and combat air patrol engagements. Iron Fortress is a little bit harder, and then Bear Trap is really hard, with Russia being in South Korea starting. So what we can see here once we click on a campaign is you may get an MP4 movie that pops up. You can click escape when that movie comes up. They are super loud when they first start, so just be warned about that. On the right here, we can see the campaign name, the difficulty level, and the situation / details of the campaign. So we can see after civil unrest in North Korea, South Korea answered the calls of resistance and crossed the DMZ. Priority 1, gain control of Pyongyang and cease the dictatorship that ruled for far too long until the North Korean leader has retreated to China, the yellow part, and is negotiating their army's support. Some former North Korean battalions have turned against the regime and will provide support. Every campaign has its own version of this, as you can see. Down here, you have your max campaign days until the campaign ends. You also have your max stalemate days, which is 4. And then you can see for each campaign, this changes. So for Rolling Fire, you have a max campaign day of 30, a max stalemate of 20, 30 and 20 again for Iron Fortress, and then 8 and 8 for Bear Trap. So we're going to go back to Tiger Spirit, obviously. Down here, you have a challenge rating that you can change depending on your skill level. What this will do is it will change the ratio of each team's forces. So let's say you're brand new, you could do recruit. It's not that fun to me, but you could. If you're, a casual flight simmer, you could do recruit, and that'll put a majority blue forces compared to red, as you can see here. And then you can go up to veteran, and it kind of goes to the left, and then you can go to ace, and it's completely to the left, and so forth. Choose which one you want based off of what you see here. This is completely up to you. If you want a challenge, I'd start with veteran or ace, veteran or ace. And then if you just want a casual flight, maybe to just look around and see if you want to be in the sim, I would probably do recruit. So now that's chosen. Down here, what you can see is a map of the campaign. We can see the blue territory is obviously the ROC, South Korea areas. And then the red area is obviously North Korean. Yellow is China. And then up here in the orange, tiny bits of orange right here is obviously Russia. And then down here is nothing, in a sense. So, navigating this little menu here, you have different options for different air bases. Each of these little icons that's a different color here that you can click on is a different air base. So, blue is the Korean forces, in this campaign. And for each campaign and each theater, specifically, this will be different. So, and they have different colors for different theaters and campaigns as well. For instance, in the Israel campaign, Syria's yellow and Egypt's orange, I think. And there is no red, so just keep that in mind. Now, for this campaign specifically, green is American, blue is ROC. So, if let's say we want to fly American, we want to fly an American F-16, you would want to aim for the green. And what we can do here on the left is we can choose 2 different types of aircraft. So we have an F-16C, and we have the F-15C. If we look over at the right side here, we can see a little bit more about the squadron that we've chosen. So this is the 36 Fighter Squadron, which you could also see here. They have an F-16C. There's 24 F-16CM Block 40s, and they have a general flight mission type, I guess. And then they're at Osan Air Base, which you can also see over here. If we go down to F-15C, we'll see this change, and they all have different patches too, which you can recognize them by. We have the 44th Fighter Squadron of F-15Cs, and they're primarily air-to-air. Let's say we want to come down here. This is an MQ-9. This has obviously no cockpit. It's just a drone, whatever. But they do exist on the map, so it's general. And if we come down here, we have some more options. You have an A-10C, air-to-ground specifically, and then we have an air-to-ground Block 40 CM F-16 from the 35th Fighter Squadron. We can see they're at Gunson, and I think you get the idea. F-16 CM-50 if you want to do a seed mission, if you want to primarily focus on seed, those are your options. Once you've chosen a squadron that you want to do, and for this tutorial, we're going to use the 36th Fighter Squadron that's close to the front line. They have a general mission type. We're going to click Commit. Prepare to get deafened by the menu noises, which you can turn down. So the first screen you're going to get is Priorities, and you have 3 tabs here. You have Target Type, Mission Type, and Packs. Target Type will obviously set where your mission targets, what type of targets your mission targets. That is very redundant. But as you can see here, aircraft, airfields, air defenses, and these are sliding scales. Right is the most, left is the least, and you can choose what you would like to do. So if you'd like to target radars more, you'd like to target frontline artillery units, or you'd like to target more naval ships in some campaigns. Rock Air Force does have Harpoon missiles on their F-16s, which is really cool. So you could turn that up and do primarily naval warfare. You can also do naval warfare with Mavericks and the American F-16s. You do have those options here that you can set. As a beginner, I would always recommend keeping all 3 of these tabs set to by HQ until you get a feel of what missions you like to do and what you specialize in, and also just to feel a bit more comfortable in navigating more of this 2D map that we'll get into in a minute. So we're going to go to the Mission Type tab, kind of the same thing, but this is your mission type instead of your target type. So if you want to do more offensive counter-air, so OCA strikes against airfields and stuff of that nature, escort, sweeps, cap escort specifically, sweeps, things of that nature, bar cap, patrols, that's what you would choose. SAM suppression is obviously seed, suppression of enemy air defenses. Interdiction is, I believe it is like ground strikes against frontline units. I may be incorrect about that. And then close air support is obviously close air support. Strategic strikes is against logistical infrastructure and command posts and stuff of that nature. Anti-shipping, so forth and so forth. Defensive counter-air reconnaissance. Set by HQ. Once again, also right to left, least. Right is most, left is least. And then here we have packs, and this is where going to be a priority of where you want your missions to take place. And each of these little blocks here that you can click on, and they'll start flashing as you see here. Hopefully the video captures it. It's kind of fast. Is a different city or area. So let's say Pack 42, Coxsan. Of course, I chose that one. You can slide this up, and the darker red you make it up to 5 will mean that you'll get hopefully more missions fragged in that area. Doesn't always necessarily work, but it can. So, once we're done with that, we can click OK. And before we click this Start Campaign, I'm just going to move it up to the top left here because I want to go over some of this stuff that's in this campaign. So, one of the primary buttons that you're going to use, and we'll go back over it again, excuse me, here we go, is this button right here, second to top, the Fighter Squadron menu. So this is going to be a full list of your squadron's details and information, which also has a Set by HQ button that you can uncheck. What this will do is it will turn off, as you can see over here, if you see this change right here, it will stop the AI from planning missions for you. So if you turn it back on, it'll pre-plan missions for you. It'll just put missions all over the map, and I'll show you a little bit of that in a second here. Actually, I'm going to leave it off for this tutorial because it's not necessary. You'll see it in a bit. Other than that, we can see aircraft 24, pilots 48, their experience, their morale, which is high, supply is full, their next resupply is at 21 Zulu, which correlates with the day and time up here. This is Zulu with the Z, the LT is local time, and then we can see all of our stats like AG kills, AA kills, naval kills, stationary targets, so forth. And here you can see a list of your pilots. So that's cool. We'll go ahead and click Start Campaign. I am going to leave it on, I guess. That's fine. I just went back on my word. So this is a good point. So OCA strike here, as we can see it planned 3 missions for us, and it will keep planning missions if we let the time scale run. And it's going to plan missions, you know, a couple hours out, which is not a big deal. Once you go to take off, it will automatically start fast forwarding for you to the point that you want to do, whether you're doing a ramp start, a taxi takeoff, or taxi or takeoff choice. Taxi will start you in the hangar, takeoff will start you on the runway, yada, yada, yada. So that's basically that. So now let's navigate over the tabs now that the campaign's started. So the mission schedule tab right here is where we're already at. It shows you your flights in your squadron and the different flights you can join. And then we have day, time. This is the time scale right here, so you can speed it up to to times 64, and you can stop it. You can also go into 1 times, which is, you know, real time, everything. Down here, once we choose one and it's highlighted, it'll show you the flight plan on the map. It'll automatically zoom into the flight plan. You'll come down here, so let's do escort just for fun, because I'm not already in it. So we'll go to escort. For your first flight, I recommend you be number 1. I always recommend you be number 1. You can fly as 2, 3, or 4 and have AI flight leads, element leads, and wingmen other than the flight lead. And but I always recommend flying as 1. It teaches you good fuel management, teaches you good combat management, teaches you good formation management, handling a flight, everything from the start. It's just better. You're not going to be good at formation flying. You're not going to be good at listening to radio calls your first couple times in the sim. So I recommend being number 1, because if you make mistakes, you're not going to lose your flight, in a sense. With Link 16, it's a little bit better. The data module days back in the day were a little bit rougher, so at least with Link 16, you can find your wingman faster, but I recommend being 1. It teaches you a lot of valuable skills and radio and comms navigation, which is super nice, so I recommend that. And just regular navigation as well. So let's go to the Intel tab. Intel here kind of just shows you the basic air operations and ground operations and what they're technically aiming for. So offensive operations for air operations are going to be against Suncheon, and they're going to start at 4 Zulu. And then ground operations are a minor offensive against Suncheon. I hope I'm saying that right, at 3 Zulu. And then down here we can see our force ratios, and you can change these to whatever you need to change them to. So air defenses can change to all these, you know, whatever. Let's say we want to change ground power to air bases, and then back, it just shows ratios. So blue is your team, red is their team. Once again, this can change depending on the theater and campaign. So, and then down here we can see recent updates of what the forces are doing. So 331 Bridge was captured by DPRK, 570 was captured by ROC. Next, this is the save button. You can save before or after you do a briefing or a data cartridge loadout. You can also save after a flight, before a flight. You can save whenever, and it will save everything currently as you are. So you can name this whatever you want. You could name this Korea and save it, whatever you would like to do here. The logbook is your logbook. Don't look at my skills. ACMI doesn't do anything for me. This is useful for new users. I recommend this. This is the tactical reference page up here, and you have all kinds of different things that you can look at here. And let's say you're planning a mission to go strike a SAM battery or something, and they have SA2s. So you can go to Vehicles, SAMs, and then navigate to the SA2. And then down here, this is probably the most useful thing for at least SAMs, is you'll see this little RWR icon. If you click this, it will tell you or show you what they sound like on your RWR, which is super useful. And then up here, you can see some general information. This kind of goes hand in hand with the threat guide that I showed you guys in the last video, but you can see all of their missile stats and everything about them and how much they weigh and how they get towed and how they get to the front line, you know, all of that stuff. So, and then there's some more info down here for you to recognize. And then like if we go to SA5, you can see it sounds different. And it has its own details in here. So this is really useful if you want to look at a threat guide in game. We can also do it for ships. We can also do it for missiles. Hold on here, I think. Stand by. Why can I not figure out what missile I want to use? Wow, I am... Oh, here we go. That's why, because I'm dumb. Here we go. So the Meteor missile sounds like this. So really useful. I recommend you use that. Comms has no thing. Setup just takes you to your settings menu. So that's cool. So let's go back to mission schedule. And then on the right here, I'll try to put text next to each of these buttons that are useful for you. This button right here will just increase the map. This button right here will show you the order of battle. And if you click on these, so let's go actually DPRK. So once you click on a flag here, you can see all of their things on the map below it. So down here, and then we can also undo stuff. So if we want to see just air targets or just land targets, you can click each of these tabs. And then right here, we can see Army Rock has all these units, and then Army DPRK has all of these units. What we can do is you can zoom in on your 2D map back here behind it. You can just scroll wheel, click on one of these that is available to find. Some of these won't be available to find. And then you can highlight it and then click find. And then you can find it on the map here. You can also click info, and this will show you the operational status and everything that's in there. And then actually go back, you can click recon and see it in a 3D format too. So we'll go a little bit more in depth with that in a minute. So let's go back to where we started. Stand by here. Okay, so that was the order of battle. Next is the fighter squadron menu that we already touched on. Sorry, I had a little freeze up there. Sierra Hotel. This will just show you some pilots, whatever, not really useful. Force levels is the same thing as Intel, not really useful. This is the J-Stars replay. As you get further in your campaign, you can fast forward or play this, and it will show these dots, and these dots move, which is in reference to your forces on the map here, how far they pushed up or down, things of that nature, and you can kind of get an idea of what the battle is doing. Air tasking order goes a little bit more in depth with mission scheduling. So, in a sense here, we can see that we have an OCA strike. And let's say we don't want that to happen because this OCA strike is going to go 1,000,000 miles into the enemy territory. So once you have air tasking order open and you click on OCA strike, it will change it to that. And then, oh, I did not mean to edit that waypoint. So this is package 2031, and they are the Block 40 Vipers. Can I find them? Here they are. And then you could technically delete that, and it will remove it. And as you can see, it removed it off our frag order over here. I don't recommend doing that because you're just going to cause issues for random flights if you don't know what you're doing. But you can also delete everybody else too if you wanted to cancel the whole thing. But if you just don't want your fighter pilots to die, and you see there's already like 4 different flights fragged for the same airbase, you can delete just yours if you wanted to. Otherwise, you can show entire air tasking order, and this will give you a breakdown by mission type of packages that are going out. And you can do the same thing. You can delete them in here. Kind of useful. I'll also show you the takeoff times. Next is the briefing menus. This is also the loadout menu. These 2 buttons right here. We're going to get a little bit more into that in a minute. Zoom out, zoom in. And then down here, we're going to skip the rest of these buttons. This is the data cartridge, which we'll also get into, and then the weather. So let's say you go into the mission, and it's winter, and it's snowy everywhere, and it's just bright white. You can change this. You can change this date to 2021, 01. Let's say I want to make it winter. You can change the date, and then click Set Date, and it will change the season. For instance, if we go to 10, it'll obviously be autumn/fall, and you can do that. And then you can also change the current weather to be fair, sunny, poor, inclement, and you can also change them down here for different shifts. So, and then once you're done with changing all of this, there's also different options for turbulence, wind, atmosphere, clouds. You can play around with this as much as you want. You would save weather, and then you can close out of that. So that's pretty cool. That's pretty much it for the top left to the bottom right here. So let's now get into planning a flight. Let's do an OCA strike for specifics. So as we can see here, we chose OCA strike, and I chose being number 1, and we can see the status is still briefing. This status will change depending on how long you are in the mission. So let's say takeoff time was 3:36, and the time up here shows 3:38. This will change from briefing to ingress to pushing to all kinds of different statuses back to landing, depending on how far they are in the mission. You'll also see them navigating up the map across the waypoints, so that's pretty cool. But let's get to mission planning specifically. So,
all right, listen up.
We're going to click this briefing button down here that I just clicked, and you're going to get that loud guy saying, all right, listen up. And this is going to show us a mission overview. We can see our package number here. We can see our package mission, Strike Calma Airport. We can see our target area, 1 nautical miles northeast of East Wonsan. Time on target is going to be 4 Zulu exact. Sunrise is 21:51. Sunset is 09:20. This will show you a little bit of details about the situation and intelligence reports. The highest impact targets are the runway section and the runway THR-33 left, which we'll get into. Here we can see our roster. So we have Weasel 2, we're the flight lead. Nobody else has been assigned yet, but it will be as we get closer to this mission time. Let's say this started at 3:36 and it's 3:24 on your map. Most likely somebody will be assigned to this already, but since we're 2 hours ahead of schedule, they're not assigned. We'll also have Satan 5, Mud Hen 4, Falcon 5. A little bit further down here, we can see package elements, and this will tell you exactly what each of these flights are doing. So Weasel 2, we're destroying the ZKWS runway section and or other facilities at the target site. And then we'll see here, Satan 5 is flight 1745. They're doing the same OCA strike. It's for Block 52 Rock Air Force, and they're destroying the radar and other facilities at the target site. And then Mud Hen 4 is going to do SEED, which is obviously Rock Air Force. And then Falcon 1 is escort Block 40 Vipers from our same flight, or from our same squadron. Down here you can see threat analysis. We have air-to-air threats. Enemy cap aircraft are likely to be operating within operation area, so that means they'll be up there in that area. We have known suspected surface-to-air threats. So we have SA-5, so S-200 missile launchers 3 nautical miles north of Munchen City, which I believe if we search this, yep, there they are. So that's correct. We'll get a bit more into that in a second. Here we can see our steer points, which will show you our times for being at the steer points, which will also show on the cruise page inside the F-16 specifically. It will show you your distance. The distance correlates. So if you're at holding point 3, distance to the push point is 9.9 nautical miles. If you were at steer point 2, distance to the holding point would be 25.2 miles. This is headings here. This is calibrated airspeeds that you need to use to get to these on time. This is altitude above mean sea level, so 22,000 over mean sea level. Actions will show you what you need to do. So as we can see here, we're going to take off, and then it wants us on the takeoff to climb immediately to 22,000 mean sea level. Here we'll see the formations, and we'll see wedge, and then it wants you to switch into box as you go into the pre-IP, and as you're in the strike, you should be in box, and then as you hit the turning point, you should be in an arrowhead as you split, and then you go back to wedge for landing. And you'll see over here comments as well. So for the holding point, you're going to be sitting there for a couple minutes, and it says departure from the holding point. So when you would start to push the push point from the holding point would be departure 0352. Keep this in mind. This is super necessary, or else you're going to be out of time with the rest of your flight, or you're going to be above schedule sitting at the push point like a goober. So that's whatever. Number 4 is rendezvous with package, and then obviously strike is attack target. The rest of these are very whatever. I mean, they just tell you exactly what the point tells you, the description. So that's whatever. Comms ladder is useful. Here you'll see your UHF and VHF channels. As we can see here, these are our presets in these little brackets here. So for intraflight comms on the VHF, we're going to use 15. And then UHF, you have all these different options. So departure, ground tower, and departure, which is kind of redundant, is 2, 3, and 4. And then approach, ATIS, approach tower, approach, whatever, obviously 2, 3, 4 backwards, and so forth. AWACS and check-in are 6 and 5. Base ops are 1. Common is 14 and 13. You get the idea. These are all your preset channels for the respective radios. Down here's your IFF details, link 1 details, link 16 details, and this is your ordinates for each of the flights, which you can reference if you would like to, or carry in 2 times GBU 31s, so 2,000-pounder JDAMs. Down here you can see the weather for the day, so that's pretty cool. You can see the cloud base. And then here we have our supports in the area, which is an AWAC, so we have 1 E2C on station, so they'll be 19 nautical miles northwest of Sanjang City, available for air detection and warning. You have your rules of engagement, visually ID unknown aircraft before engaging unless authorized by AWACS, which means you would want to call a declare. And then emergency procedures, you can use these in the sim as well, so make sure you do the send the rescue choppers if you eject. Or if you're planning on ejecting, call the rescue choppers before you eject. So that's that.
All right, listen
Quick
up.
tip, actually, go back into that. You can click print, and this will save an HTML copy to your Falcon BMS 4.38/user/briefings folder. And you can see an HTML. So if you have a second monitor and you don't remember all this, and you're not using easy boards like I taught you, you can throw it onto your second monitor in a notepad and reference all of this in the same layout that it's currently in. So we know our briefing. So let's look at our loadout. I agree that we have a sniper pod. We also have a nav pod. We have 2 GBU-31s, 2 AIM-9s, and 2 AIM-120Cs, and an ECM pod and 2 fuel tanks. I always recommend that you check your loadout before going. You can make changes in here. So in a sense, let's say you are going to strike army targets and it gives you a stupid default loadout of 2 GBU-31s when you're targeting 15 million tanks on the front line. You can change these to different things in here by clicking this. So keep that in mind. If you just exit out without pressing OK, it doesn't save them, by the way. So next, we can go into the flight plan. This will show us all of our waypoints again. Let's say you didn't want to do a waypoint, you could click delete. You can also change what formations you want them to be related to. I don't recommend messing with this. It causes more issues than it fixes. So let's get into flight setup. So we know we're going to be targeting this airbase on waypoint 7 up here. So what we'd want to do is we want to recon it. And it's going to open these two menus at once. And what I recommend right away is clicking these little arrows right here and kind of dragging your mouse down so you can zoom out. And then you can use this top one to kind of rotate the 3D view. And then over here on your target list, we're going to click on it. And we know our mission is to target the ZKWS runway section. It doesn't really matter which one you target because they're all the same runway. But you can click one of these. You can zoom in if you don't know exactly what you're looking at too. So like if I see here, let's say I click the radar SSR, you'll see it kind of zooms over, but you get an idea now. Well, actually, these aren't the same runway, but they kind of are, in a sense. The game considers them kind of the same. And then we have different runways here, 33 right, 15 right. But our main target is to target the runway sections. So let's click on that. Down here, was confusing to me at first at Falcon BMS. I didn't understand what this meant. But this, designate as target steer point number 1, will replace one of your waypoints to the target that you currently have selected over here. So let's go to this runway section. It's green, it's highlighted. What I always was recommended and what I recommend to users is to put this back to 99 so you can quickly navigate to it. Accept that target. Choose your next target. We only have 2 GBU-31s, so we're only going to do 2 targets. Navigate back to 98. Click accept. So that is that. If you accidentally close the targets menu, you can click targets again. They'll come back up. One quick side point, which is not related to the Korean theater or any ordnance available in the Korea theater, is you have something called weapon targets here. And you can set, if you change this from steer points to weapon targets, which I don't recommend doing if you're not in the Israeli theater, is you can set certain target points, steer points, weapon target steer points for weapons like the Spice 2000 bomb, Spice 1000 bomb. It really only comes into play in the Israeli theater I've seen, but it is an option. And that's where you would do that. You would just switch it from steer point to waypoint target and do it that way. So let's go down to, now that we got that set up. So now that we're in the area, we got our stuff set up here and we agree that we have our target steer points set up. We want to look at the area around the target zone and a little bit inwards. And we can see here that we have an air defense battalion right here. So what you can do, and I did that a little bit quick, I'm sorry, is you can right click on it and click recon. And you can kind of see what's here. And you can do the same thing that you did at the airport, drop down this list and it'll tell you that's the 168 9th. And we can see that, yes, they have their square pair and their bar lock and all their radars here. And they have an SA-7 and SA-5 launchers and so forth. So for mission planning reasons, what you can do now is you can right click, and then do set pre-plan threat steer point. And then click on this little green diamond here. You can change this drop down to the relevant SAM system. And we can do SA-5. And you'll see here it puts a radius. And then click accept. And then close this menu. And then drag it over that icon. And what we'll see here is it now creates a threat circle that will show up on our HSD inside of the F-16's pit and on the SID inside of the F-15C's pit. That's how you get those yellow radar rings that will have the number of the radar in the middle, where it says SA5 in the middle and then it has a big yellow circle around it. That's what this is. So you have an idea of when you're walking into a threat point or into a threat circle. Okay, so that's that. Once you've got that set up, you can do data cartridge. And then here we can confirm on this first targets page that we have target 99 steer point set to Tacoma Airport ZKS runway section with the coordinates. And then we can agree that the coordinates are different for this one. Same, obviously, name for the rest of it, though. So what you want to do is click Save here. And this is known as the click dance in BMS. EWS, you can change your EWS settings for your chaff and flare. You can click Save on that if you just want to use the basics. MFDs, you can set your basic MFDs for different master modes, which ones they go to first. You can click Save on that if you don't want to change it. For here, this is where it's going to get a little bit different. You want to click Com Plan and then Save. This will load the com plan from your briefing, and then Save will save it to your data cartridge. IFF, you want to do the same thing. Click it, and then save it, and that'll do the same thing, load all your IFF details from the briefing. Link 16, once again, same thing. So, Link 16 plan, as we saw that call sign there change, if you noticed, and then save. And then harm, you can just save. You can change stuff in the harm as well. The only ones I don't recommend touching are Link 16 and IFF, and realistically com as well. Don't touch any of those. Once you've saved everything, you can then take off. Now, to get into a little bit more usage of the 2D map, I want to show you more units on the page, and I'm going to show you how to do that. So here, what we can do is we can do installations, and down in each of these menus, you'll see different options. So let's start with installations. And this is going to change what we see. So let's say we click on logistics, and then we want to click on infrastructure, and then political, and then CC, and then other. Can you see how much stuff joined? This will allow you to find different targets of different types on the map, while also being able to hide ones that you don't want to see. I recommend keeping the ones that you're not currently targeting off the map. It just causes clutter, and I would basically leave airfields, air defenses, infrastructure, logistics, and Army on the map, because Army can have manpads in their formation, so that is useful to know. In regards to air units, you can see squadrons. If you see these little, I'm trying to see if I can show you this right here and over here where the mouse is. If I uncheck those, they go away, and it just shows the squadrons at each air base on the map. Fighters will take fighters off the map, attack will take attack off the map, bomber, you get the idea. These are all different. You can see helicopters, support aircraft, all of that nature. Ground units, you can change this by divisions, brigades, or battalions, and you can show combat, and you'll see some of those disappearing. You can turn off air defenses, so if you see that one with the green diamond under it disappearing. And you can also turn on and off support, which would be logistics battalions. I recommend doing battalions, it's a little bit better. Same thing for naval. Obviously, there's no naval units out in the ocean right now, but you can do naval combat and supply. Nothing's going to change if I click these, but that's that. So now we go down to show threat circles. Here you can see air defense systems by low altitude, average, and high altitude average. Or no, excuse me, this is their full coverage. The next one is average. Average radar coverage by low altitude and average radar coverage by high altitude, which is basically, I mean, good luck using that. Where are you not going to be targeted at that point? But that's besides the point. I usually use high altitude and the purple references per SAM system. Here you can show object labels, which is kind of annoying, but it does help. So if you want to see what each of these things are, you can see it's a 567 bridge or a EW site and so forth. Here you can show the bullseye, which is up here. If you use bullseye, you can also show doghouse, and then all of these things. You can set additional steer point lines. We're going to stay away from that from now. That gets a little bit more in detail, but we'll stay away from that. Set pre-planned threat steer points we already went over. And then you can obviously do rulers and stuff as well. So that is a basic usage of the campaign 2D map and mission flight briefing and setup. I appreciate you guys for watching. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. Make sure to like and subscribe. Thank you so much.